Welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. In today's video, we're going to be continuing Eminence and Shadow, The Shadow's Web. What if Sid Kagenou was Spider-Man? Season 1, Part 4. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that is to come out now and in the future. So with Part 4 and Part 5 looming on the horizon today and tomorrow respectively, we'll be coming to an end of Season 1 of this series. Now, from what I've learned, Season 2 is supposed to be coming out later on this year, so this series, it could be getting a Season 2 in the future. It just depends on if you guys will still want it at that point. Also, for today's video and for tomorrow's video, while there will be dialogue, the videos are going to be a bit more on the summary kind of side, mainly because I'm trying to get through as much of the content as possible, and if I had to write out a script for every little thing in detail that takes place, the videos will be a lot longer than I need them to be right now. So today's video, while it will be long, it'll be a little bit more on the summary side of explaining things, but still I do hope that you'll enjoy today's video and tomorrow's for the Season 1 finale. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Following the attack at the school, the academy would be closed down early and let out for summer vacation. Many of the students had chosen to go back home for the summer break, although Sid decided he was going to stay back at his apartment in the capital, only to find that there wasn't really much to do there either. Until he had gotten word from Alpha to head to the city of Lindworm. Of course, Sid could have gotten there on his own accord, but after receiving an invitation from Rose, he decided to take that instead. The girl was smitten with Sid, believing that he had sacrificed himself in an attempt to save her during the attack on the school. That wasn't entirely the case. I mean, it wasn't like he wanted her to die or anything, but still, it wasn't so much a romantic involvement, more so that Sid was really addicted to fighting her. Like, the fight that they had during the festival, well, he gave Sid a rush, someone that could actually push and challenge him a bit. Of course, Sid ultimately lost on purpose. He had to remain the background character that he was, so he couldn't afford to win. But still, he let himself indulge. He called the fight his way of having a little treat. Fighting Rose, it was a thrill. Her skillsmanship with the sword, it was something to truly be marveled. Sid wondered if he went all out, how long she could last. He knew he'd win, but still, the fact that she could probably last for longer than most others was definitely something that intrigued him. Of course, Sid would not be the only one that would be going to Lindworm, as the young sister of Iris herself, Princess Alexia, was going to be going also. She was being sent there for an investigation into the dominant religion of Lindworm. However, she had her other motives for going also. Knowing that Sid was going to be there, well, Alexia wanted to have proper dress. As such, she found herself going to the department store that was run by one of Sid's subordinates. As such, there were many things that she wanted to purchase for a trip, among them being, well, some specially made women's undergarments, commonly referred to as a thong. Of course, Iris was opposed to such fabric and wear. However, Alexia, well, she believed she had the perfect figure to pull it off. And, well, when Alexia started bringing up the fact that Brian, aka Captain Midgar, Iris's fiance and betrothed, would probably like to see her in something like this, well, now then the sisters' minds went to some rather dark and shady places, to say the least. All the same, though, as Sid would arrive to the country of Lindworm, he was able to see that for the most part, it wasn't all that far off from the country of Midgar. Of course, there were many of these countries that were to the western side of the Dark Mountains, and Mesfault, the country that lied to the east, they inhabited that area all to themselves. Of course, though, while Sid had read and heard about all of these countries, he had never really taken the time to actually travel to any of them, although members of Shadow Garden had. Among them being one of his many loyal followers and supporters, that being in the form of Beta. Beta, who had gone under the pseudonym of Natsume and had decided to take up being an author. To Sid's surprise, or rather lack thereof, he learned that she took many stories from his world and basically did a little change here and there, more or less making a copy for this world that never had these stories, and ended up becoming a best-selling author. Of course, anyone would have been mad. Sid at least thought she would have taken inspiration to make her own stories, but not gonna lie, they had already made the department store, which had already been a fixture in his world, and now using these stories to make him a lot more money. In the end of the day, whoever was drawing a fortune to Shadow Garden could only be considered a good thing in the grand scheme of things. While there, Sid decided he would take advantage of one of the few things that he truly enjoyed above all else, that being enjoying a nice soak in the hot springs. And, funny enough, he would meet someone while he was there, that being Alexia. Alexia tried to play it off, acting as though Sid being here didn't really amount to anything for her, as she would go over the upcoming event of the goddess trial, and she explained that the reason why she was there was to look into the recent murder of an archbishop. Sid would take in the information, wondering if the murder could have anything to do with the cult of Diablos, although if Alpha had already sent him here as a request from her, then that might probably be the case. All the same though, the tension between the two in the hot springs was definitely thickening. Alexia trying her best to stand on an air of superiority, even going as far as to refer to Sid's own manhood as something that was shortcoming, that of a worm. Although Sid, as confident as he had always been, would remark that it is not wise to underestimate one's own Excalibur, because you never know what's hidden in the sheath. And well, for Alexia, she got a full view of Excalibur at its full power. And safe to say, well, if there was, well, he definitely shot up the charts, to say the least. FYI, we might want to keep her away from Zucchini for a while now. But in either case, as Sid had been given an invitation, Rose had actually had higher hopes for him. You see, the goddess trial, as it were, was an event that took place once a year, where warriors would get the opportunity to face off against warriors from the past, ghosts given form to manifest. A way of fighting dead spirits given form. The more powerful you are, the more powerful the warrior that would be summoned to face you, since they would only bring in warriors relative to your power. And if you were able to actually defeat a powerful one, then you could be given a special privilege, being given the rights to travel between the kingdoms without a need for a pass or anything like that. That was definitely a tool that Sid could see using to his advantage, although knowing his power, then he might actually end up facing off against someone who might be a bit more than ordinary, and that would all but give away his latent potential. So for Sid Kagenou, he had no intentions on competing. Up in the stands though, Alexia, along with Rose, would be watching on, along with Beta, still posing as Natsume. Safe to say, Alexia and Beta, aka Natsume, did not get along with one another at all. Something about women and the size of their chest. It instills jealousy and rage. One of the few things that Sid would never truly understand, but honestly, as a connoisseur of the finer things in life, he would never look at a pair of large bosoms as a bad thing. No, when a pair of large bosoms walked the earth, Sid considered it a blessing, one of the many things in the world that he wanted to protect. Now, was he a pervert? No, by no means, nothing like that at all. But still, was he a young man with carnal needs and desires that he was deadening for the sake of his mission and for the duty of the world? Absolutely. Also, was there a part of him that was distinctly aware that if he oogled other girls for any particular long amount of time, that other women in his life might get jealous? Possibly. Among those women, would one of them probably be Alpha? Maybe, maybe not. And could this instill infighting amongst the group? Possibly also. Long story short, Sid was trying to avoid as much bloodshed as humanly possible, and women's jealousy often leads to a lot more cases of violence than you might think. Look it up, there's research done behind it. However, much to Sid's own chagrin, he would find himself being called into the arena. Although this time, before he even had a chance to say or do anything, he found himself before the masses. Apparently, he had been standing over the railing and some idiot shoved into him. He was so caught up in his own thoughts and monologue that he ignored the spider sense, since he didn't sense any malice or killing intent behind the shove. And now he was standing before all of these people, all of them yelling and cheering, Rose looking on in anticipation, Alexia shocked to see him down there, and Beta, well, just happy to see her master and cheering him on for success. Of course, Sid had no idea what was going to happen now. He was already here, so there was no way he could get out of it. Sure, he could run away, but that would only bring shame to him and to the academy and to the family, and he might end up getting kicked out. He could attempt to fight and lose in spectacular fashion, but that would be hard to explain since the goddess trial could only bring something out of the sanctuary, a warrior that was on his level. This had Sid having a lot of mixed emotions, since he had no idea who was going to come out or what. He simply stood guard as he grabbed hold of the sword that was by his side. He couldn't transform into the Spider-Man, that would all but give away his identity. The only thing he could hope that whoever came out of here wouldn't be too terribly strong and wouldn't be in too terrible a mood for a fight. As the door to the sanctuary would open, a being would walk out. Everyone could feel the tremoring aura that shook the entire arena, everyone wondering who this warrior could be. But who stepped out was, well, rather confusing. For you see, it wasn't a warrior in great armor or robe or attire. Instead, he looked like a peasant. Not a peasant, but a commoner. A young man, well-kept hair, glasses. He appeared to be wearing a button-up shirt, sweater vest, some good old slacks and khakis. He looked kind of like a nerd, some people would think. He simply smiled and waved, the young man completely ordinary save for the sword that was by his side. However, Sid couldn't help but smile. Does my goddess look down upon me with favor, even in an hour like this? Don't you mean our goddess? With all due respect, Mr. Parker, Sid would say, you're supposed to be dead. Oh, I know, Mr. Kagenou. I was resting in my eternal slumber when suddenly my warrior spirit found itself being called, and it looks like I arrived in time to meet you. I take it you're the newest predecessor. Indeed I am. I must say, it's an honor to meet someone such as yourself. Well, the honor is all mine. Although, I take it, since you're dressed the way that you are, a bit more flashy for my liking, I take it these people here don't know who you are? Oh, I already know. I've looked through your memories. We are connected after all. Is that right? So you know what I'm about and what I'm trying to do? More or less. Must say, for someone who wanted to be atomic, you sure do have higher goals. Well, what can I say? I aim high. And with all due respect, I feel like the goals of my predecessors were far too low for me. None taken. The fact that you're here, it means that we probably didn't do as good of a job as we should have. Don't sell yourself short. You had your ideals, and I respect you for sticking to them. However, I'm the one in the driver's seat now, and I'm the one that's going to change things. Oh, I've seen. The one that thinks he's going to slay a god. You really think you're up for the task? I know I'm up for the task. Very well then. Peter would reach down and grab his sword. Out of courtesy, let's leave the mask to the side and battle man to man. A good exercise, Sid would say. No need for us to pull out all the stops. Oh, I agree. Although, I gotta say, if you and I could have gone all out, makes me wonder who would have won. Sid would simply grin as he drew his sword. Old man, don't go asking questions you already know the answer to. Hey, what happened to that respect for your elders? I have shown you the proper respect, but now it's time for you to kneel. If you think you can make me. The two would quickly dart towards one another, engaging in a flurry of swordsmanship. With the both of them having the usage of Spire Sense, there wasn't a sneak attack that they could launch on the other, so there was no point in trying. This simply came to a straight up battle to see simply who could push the other one the furthest. Of course, the both of them simply stood in silence, neither one of them giving any remarks of great note or value. For the people, these two seemingly ordinary individuals were almost anything but. Although their power, what they were giving off, didn't indicate anything significant, there was just this mystery, this intrigue, this aura, their presence. It was as if there was a great power just bubbling under the surface, like a volcano that could erupt at any moment, as if it chose not to. As they continued their battle, Sid would find himself on the back foot for a moment. Not bad, kid. You're definitely more skilled than any fighter I fought in my day. I have to say, to be able to fight with someone who can actually keep up with me on my level, it's truly exhilarating. Like that girl Rose? That's more of a tease than anything else. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy fighting her tremendously. And Alexia too, and even Alpha. But still, in the end, it's so boring because you already know who's going to win. Kinda like this fight, Peter would say. Precisely, I already know who's going to win. Well, so thoughtful of you to acknowledge me as the winner. The only thing that I acknowledge is that you're going to be the first one to touch the ground, old man. As Sid would go in for a swing, Peter would deliver a back fist to Sid's face, backing him up. Don't go throwing around that term old man so loosely. This old man's still got a few tricks up his sleeve. Duly noted. Sid would make sure to give him a receipt with a punch to the gut. And you shouldn't underestimate the strength of youth. None taken. They would back up once more, both of them raising their blades. You think we're at the limit? Yeah, I think so. I think this next encounter should be the last. I agree. It was nice to meet you, Sid Kagenou. May I just say, your methods are definitely different from what mine or anyone else's could have been, but we don't look down on you for it. In the end, we know why you fight and what you fight for. And just know, you have all of our support. Thank you. I'll take that with me into the future. the future you intend to make. But of course, I intend to be the last hero. Well, if you can actually pull that off, Peter would say, then all of our deaths would not have been in vain. The two would clash at one another one final time. As quickly as they collided, they would end up on opposite sides of the arena. Peter simply smiled as his glasses would slice in half, as he knelt down to the ground on one knee. Sid would then appear behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You fought well. Now it's time to retire. I agree. This was fun. Shadow. With that, Peter would be defeated. While the fight seemed a little anticlimactic, it was still impressive nonetheless, with Sid Kagenou getting the victory. With that, the trials would continue on, with Sid leaving to go and get himself something to drink. The fight was, well, eventually going to be overshadowed by something way cooler, so he didn't worry too much about it. Of course, though, for Sid, winning that battle was just the beginning. For you see, in that moment, not too long after, a great door would start to manifest open. Members of Shadow Garden, led by Alpha, would then make their presence known, as they would then encapsulate and surround the new Archbishop, the one that had recently been selected, Archbishop Nelson. They would now corner him and force him to expose the truth, a truth that would not only be revealed to them, but also to the likes of Rose and Alexia, and Natsume, aka Beta, who had also been standing close in attendance. It was supposed to be simple for them to enter the sanctuary and to gather all the truth in detail. However, much to their chagrin, Alexia and Rose would end up following along. Beta had been taken as a quote-unquote hostage, and unfortunately had to keep up appearances once the two princesses chose to tag along. For the girls in particular, Alpha would uncover and reveal the truth, that she, as an elf, was a descendant of the hero known as Olivier, the one of whom that had severed the left arm of Diablos nearly 1,000 years ago. But it wasn't just that. It was also that Alpha, along with the rest of the members of Shadow Garden, were a part of experiments that had been conducted on them by none other than his Archbishop Nelson. The ones who had been trying to unlock and ungain the power of Diablos using the severed left arm. The rest of Diablos had been sealed away by the gods that had caused them to perish. The only thing the cult had been able to manage to sever and use was the left arm. That was all that remained. While it did provide them great power, allowing for them to use the Diablos blood to create what they called beads, a implement that could allow them to gain immortality, although with their own set and limitations. It was soon discovered that the 12 beads were being used by the Knights of the Round, and it had been through this process that they had been able to live on for as long as they had. However, the Knights of the Round, as time went on, lost their power and their influence. You could only use but so much of the left arm before eventually there wasn't much else, and with the rest of Diablos all but sealed away, unsealing him became the cult's primary objective. The Knights of the Round and the Cult of Diablos, two separate entities working together, one and the same. The reason why the Knights of the Round had been allowed into the fold of the cult was because they had political influence within the country of Midgard. It was through their influence that the cult was able to gain the power that they did, and as such, the cult would reward the Knights of the Round with immortality, allowing them to fight for all eternity until Diablos was resurrected, at which point they would be spared from the calamities of the world. However, as time passed, the Knights of the Round, they became more of a relic than anything else, They fell out of favor, not only with the country of Midgar, but even with the cult of Diablos themselves. That's why it caused them to use, well, for the most part, defective beads. While it did grant them strength and mighty power, in the end of the day, it wasn't as effective as a pure bead made from the blood of Diablos. Of course, for those who had been experimented on and had managed to be saved by Sid, they had been granted back their previous form, and thus was how the member of Shadow Gardens came to be, and why they pledged their loyalty to Sid Kagenou in the first place. However, what was Sid doing around this time? Well, he had kept being followed by a doorway of sorts, and not having any way of escaping it, he entered into it, walking through the sanctuary and walking through the memories that it held. While making his journey, surprisingly enough, he would meet with the memory of Peter Parker, the one of whom that he had fought not too long ago, and the two would discover someone else who had been kept hidden away in the sanctuary, the one known as Aurora. She was being, well, held up and tied in a chair, so after freeing her, they would make their way through the sanctuary also, believing that once they found and destroyed the sanctuary's core, then they'd be able to escape relatively safely. While they would eventually find the core, they also came across Aurora's previous memories as well, as she too was once experimented on by the cult of Diablos. In the meantime, the members of Shadow Garden, while dealing with Archbishop Nilsson, who had now revealed the true state of his power, foregoing the facade of the would-be knight, he attempted to exact revenge against the likes of Shadow Garden by using the sanctuary's core to his advantage, absorbing all of their magic while amplifying his own. However, what he didn't intend on facing was someone the likes of Epsilon, whose power was great even without the use of magic, and even with his ability to make clones, they were highly ineffective and easily disposable. Once Shadow Garden received all of the information and the data that they needed, they decided to make their leave, and they would simply leave the Archbishop to his fate. Although he would attempt to exact revenge, in the end, once they had all managed to flee, he decided he would simply regroup and take his chances later. As for Sid, Peter, and Aurora, they would eventually find where the Sanctuary's core was, along with a sword that could basically act as the key to freeing them, the chains that bound the entire core of the Sanctuary. Although none of them were capable of opening it, no, the only one that could possibly release it would be someone who was of a descendant of Olivier. This would bring them into conflict with Archbishop Nilsson, who, along with the clone of Olivier, would send them out to destroy those who had gotten too close to the core. While Peter would hold off against the Olivier clone, who Sid recognized as being, well, almost an exact duplicate of Alpha, give or take, Sid decided that he had had enough of this, and as they had been making their way to the sanctuary, well, he had been concocting a plan of his own, condensing the magic that he did have into a heavy mass in order to avoid all of it being siphoned off or sealed away. Sid was going to unleash it all in a mighty blast, what he called the true atomic. In one fell swoop, the sanctuary would be completely eviscerated and destroyed, with the others who had managed to escape seeing it on the outside. Shadow Garden would make their leave, leaving the likes of Alexia, Rose, and Natsumi, still Beta, pretending to be, well, a famed author, also as a way to keep an eye on Alexia and Rose. With everything that happened that day, with all that transpired, Alexia had many questions. Questions that she thought she could get the answer to. As the girls were walking away from the now completely destroyed sanctuary, Alexia could sense someone off in the distance. She quickly ran ahead as Rose and Natsume would follow close behind her, until eventually they found someone standing, a figure cloaked in shadow. As he turned, Alexia saw the mask of the Spider-Man. "So it's you," Alexia would say. "Princess Alexia, I've wondered what had kept you waiting for so long. Of course, I thought you would have ran off with everyone else, but it seems that inquisitive nature of yours always seems to get you into trouble. And you always seem to be the one that caused it, aren't you, Spider-Man? The Eminence in shadow. A lofty title, don't you think? It's a title that expressed my ideals." Alexia drew her sword. "Tell me, what are you? Who are you?" "What do you think I am? Are you an enemy to the country of Midgar? Are you ally, friend, or foe? Why do you try to label me with such, arbitrary ideals?" "Because it's a simple answer. Are you or aren't you an ally?" He would quickly appear in front of her, grabbing hold of her sword. The others stood ready to spring into action, although Natsume, aka Beta, was actually ready to cut down both girls if it came down to it. However, she saw the signal for her to stand down. "Tell me, do you think I'm an enemy? I think you're a man of many secrets. I think you're someone that doesn't like to play well with others. You try to act like you're the smartest man in the room, and perhaps you are. But even still, everywhere you go, death and destruction always seems to follow you. You may not be an enemy, but you don't act like an ally either. I am an ally to justice, and I am a friend to truth. What does that even... There are so many things in this world that you truly don't know and understand. If I swore my allegiance to Midgar, tell me, could I truly call myself an ally to justice? Is Midgar's justice the world's justice? What? What does that even... Princess Alexia, tell me, could you do the right thing, even if it meant everyone in this world will hate you? I don't The people, they love heroes. But the one thing that they love more than a hero is to see them fall, to fail, die trying. If I were to be a hero, in spite of everything I could do for these people, one day I will do something and they will eventually hate me. I cannot be a hero to Midgar. That's not what it needs. I am nothing more but the shadow, the justice that watches over the world. And for this world, I will do what I need to do. Whether it make me an ally, a friend, or a foe to you or anyone else, it makes no difference. It will not change what I have been chosen to do. I will accomplish what I have been called into this world for. And when my mission is over, then you can be the arbiter of my fate. You can decide what happens to me. Lock me away, execute me, it makes no difference. In the end, I will be the last one, the one that will live on. The world may not know my name or what I do, but as long as the world exists, then let it be known that I willed it to be so. And with that, Sid would quickly disappear into the shadows. Alexia attempted to follow after, but when she did, he was gone. Alexia being left there, along with Rose and Natsume. The girls were left conflicted. There were many things that they didn't understand. But one thing they knew was for certain. There were forces in this world. Forces far greater than any of them could truly comprehend or realize. And today was the prime example that those forces had power that they themselves alone could not hope to match. For Alexia, she knew this all too well. For so long, she always thought that her power was insignificant, and she knew that to be so. But even still, it was unsettling. The idea that there were forces at work far greater than her own. And in the end, no matter what she did, she couldn't hope to match them. But with allies, maybe she could. Alexia, Rose, and Natsume would make a pact. They would form a society of their own. Rose couldn't help but ask, and what about Shadow Garden? What do you think about them? Rose would think, between Alpha, Spider-Man, she didn't know. They don't claim themselves to be enemies, but it doesn't change that they are not our allies either. We will become a society unto ourselves, and we will determine what is right and what is wrong. And even if it means we must stand against Shadow Garden, then we will do so. I can't do it alone. I need your help. So we're forming a team, Natsume would say. Unfortunately, it seems so. Are you with me? If we pull together our resources and our influence, then I know we can become a true force for good. I like that idea, Rose would say. I agree. But a team of this magnitude, we are going to need a name. I mean, between the Cult of Diablos and between Shadow Garden, I think we should form one as well. Do you have any ideas? Alexia would ask. The girls came up with a few names before finally Natsume would come up with one herself. How about the Union? The Union? Of course. A united front of different peoples and countries coming together to form one entity? I think the Union. Short, simple, to the point. It strikes hope and fear. Very well then, Alexia would say. From this day forth, we are the Union. This concludes The Eminence in Shadow, The Shadow's Web. What if Sid Kagenou was Spider-Man? Season 1, Part 4. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue on with Season 1, Part 5 of Eminence in Shadow, The Shadow's Web. What if Sid Kagenou was Spider-Man? The Season 1 finale. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. That's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm your host, Jerron Harrington, signing off, and I'll see you next time.